Hello, is this Mark?
Yes, it is.
Mark, this is Dustin Wellness from KMSU Radio. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Dustin?
I'm excellent. Is this still a good time to talk with you?
Oh, yeah, we're good.
Awesome. It's great to have you on today. I'll introduce you to my co-host, Ton.
Hey there, how you doing?
Oh, hey, how you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great. It's Ton, like 2,000 pounds.
Oh, Ton, okay.
Yeah, if you're ready to go, we'll go ahead and get started.
Oh, yeah, I had my coffee. I'm awake, and I got a long day in front of me, so I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, talk to us. You're a bass player. Who were some of your first major influences, and how did you get started into playing the bass?
It's interesting. To make a long story short, I started when I was about 6 years old. But it's really interesting how I got into it. I actually started out as a drummer. I had an interest in drums when I was about, 5 or 6. But, we grew up very low income household, duplex, a lot of noise. That didn't last long. Mom threw the garbage cans out, and I had to find a different way, and that's how I kind of gravitated towards the bass. I would actually take a cardboard box with rubber bands, and I would try to figure out how the instrument worked by just creating it myself based on what I had seen. And, from there, I just started working the neighborhood for pennies, begging my mother for extra change, and then eventually saved up enough money to actually buy not a bass, but a guitar. And I couldn't figure out how to play 6 strings, so I ripped 3 of them off, or 2 of them off, the 2 top strings, or 2 bottom strings, actually, and started playing bass like that. Pretty funny. It's more detail. I got a book coming out. It's kind of goes into some real detail on how I actually, gravitated towards the bass guitar.
Well, yeah, obviously the system worked for you. I mean, I'm sure it helped you to become more of a well-rounded player, kind of sampling all these different instruments.
Yeah, I think what it was, too, is, and I could say this to any bass player, probably. I could speak for any bass player. It's more, it's not so much the instrument, it's the theory and the love that's behind it. It's almost like my first girlfriend. The bass guitar. It's like once you have it in your hand, it's like, wow, this is it. This is us forever. And every other instrument became secondary to me, and I just loved the bass. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. I used to watch like Birding White from Earth, Wind and Fire, and I used to just be mesmerized. I was mesmerized by his style, and he would get on that stage. I remember my first Earth, Wind and Fire concert. I was just blown away because this guy wasn't so much a slap bass player. He was more of a finger bass player, but his style was just awesome. And then there was like Louis Johnson from the Brothers Johnson. And then there was like Larry Graham. And these people, they really influenced me. I can't forget. I don't know his name. Cameo's bass player.
Oh,
okay. Mr. Marks from Slave. These guys, he had a huge influence on my life.
Well, and obviously some of those guys you're naming off there, that kind of morphed almost into the Minneapolis Sound, I think, around that time. Can you kind of explain to us a bit of that kind of period and your memories of that?
Yeah, back the Minneapolis Sound was pretty interesting. How it even developed, because we didn't really have a lot of access to R&B, rhythm and blues music, or black music, as they say. They had community-supported radio stations. I remember way back, what was it called? KUXL. It was sun-powered, so you couldn't hear the radio unless the sun was out. And so I think we grew up listening to a lot of modern rock at the time, AC/DC, groups such as that, Journey, and you name it, Boston, and that's just that was our influence. And then with a little bit of R&B, a little bit of funk that we could get in, I think, the Minneapolis Sound derived from a mixture or a melting pot of all that music.
Well, and obviously you eventually wound up playing with Prince and took over for Andre Simone, and I know those guys were childhood friends. So was that kind of a difficult situation to step into that after those guys parted ways?
I mean, not really. See, Andre is a really cool dude, man. I have a lot of respect for him. I didn't really know him personally, but I knew his style because I would watch him with Prince. And so what I didn't come in and try to take his place. What I did is I just tried to find my own niche, and I created my own world, my own Brown Mark Nation, and with that came my own bass style. And once I developed my own bass style that fit with what we were doing, it was all over. And I think a lot of the Revolution sound I'd say from like 80, 83 onward, I mean, you could hear those types of bass rhythms, a very rhythmic pattern of bass playing, very percussive, that I had developed, with the help of Prince. I mean, the dude he in himself is an amazing bass player. And I was able to mold the style together, and it became a part of the Revolution. So Andre Simone, it was a very different experience than what he brought to the table. He was a great bass player too, but we were very different.
So then, what was it like actually recording with Prince and the Revolution? And can you talk to us about kind of how that all went down?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of people like to say, did you guys collaborate with Prince in the studio? And I don't say that we collaborated as much as the Revolution. We just tried to live out his dream. We got into the mind of Prince. We learned what it was he was trying to accomplish. And so I think that was more of the collaboration, us learning, what is it you're looking for? And once we could see his direction, we jammed so much. I mean, we would sometimes jam 10 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And, I remember times eating lunch while I'm still playing. I walked to the lunchroom with my bass because it was on a wireless rig, and then I would go in the refrigerator and grab food, come back, and I'd still be playing one-handed while I was eating. I mean, that's how intense we were. And I think from that, we helped Prince create not only a style and energy, but it was almost like a freight train. It was so heavy that even when other musicians would come and stand up with us, they didn't even know where to begin. It was very difficult for them to even hang with us because the style that we had developed was so powerful and it was so rhythmic that they didn't know how to even jam with us. So it was a very interesting time period. But I think a lot of the music came from that type of grooving and jamming together.
Yeah, and we also want to get your memories of filming Purple Rain around that time, because as you mentioned, the long rehearsal days and obviously all the side projects, and then you throw in a feature-length film on top of that. That must have been quite the process.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting how that came about because, like I said, I think Prince is a genius, one of a kind of his time, and I think from very early on, even before I came into the scene, I think he had all this planned. I think these were his goals, and like I said earlier, it was a matter of just trying to get into his head and see what he's thinking, where is he headed with this, and once we figured that out, it was pretty much easy to see where it was going. And when he came to us with this idea about a movie, we were all excited, every one of us, because we know Elvis Presley used to do it. We knew the Beatles did it, and we were excited to do what we could and see what happened. And he had this great idea, this great script. Next thing I know, he went to Hollywood, came back, and we were doing a movie. And it was a pretty exciting time period.
And so eventually you decided to leave the Revolution. How did you make that decision?
Well, I mean, when you had enough, you had enough. I mean, I'm a creative person. I'm an artist. And when you have enough of something, it's time to move on. You have to keep expanding. You have to keep changing, learning different things, newer things. And we had done what we had done. We reached the pinnacle of success. And when we were coming down off of that, Prince was looking for his new direction, I guess, and so was I. It was time now for me to start exploring my own talent, to see what I could develop, what I could create. And I produced a lot of bands. One of my favorite groups that I produced, most successful, was Mazarati, and all of that creative input came from what I had learned with Prince. And so, when it's like a pimple. When it got to that point where it was, it was ready to reveal itself, it was time for me to go. I was explosive inside, internally, and I was ready to pop. And I needed to be able to express myself in a different way than what I could being with him, because Prince and the Revolution was about Prince, and so I needed to make something about me so that I could express my musical talents.
As you mentioned, Prince was a great player of the bass and all the other instruments. So when you left and worked with Mazarati and these other groups, I'm sure that was probably a relief to have more control over your own stuff and not have somebody kind of calling the shots.
Totally, and that's what I mean by the creative freedom. I was able to, with Prince, we could jam, we could come up with some grooves that were just monster, but where they would end up would not be with me, and the direction that they would head would be the direction he wanted them to head. When I was able to break away from that and do my own thing, I could create my own direction, and that's when I started to develop a style. And when I first came out, like even on my first album, a lot of people were surprised that it was more of a bubblegum, sound. That was intentional. It wasn't, because I have a very funky background, but I needed to try something different. And, I tried it. It didn't work for me. I didn't like it. But, again, that's that creative output. We try different things. Some work, some fail. Mazarati was my rock side. It was that young rock and roll side of me. I wanted to create this band that kind of had an Aerosmith feel, because I was really into that kind of rock back then. So I lived vicariously through them. I was able to go to their rehearsals and really direct, every step of that project. And then I had a girls group. I worked with artists such as Chico DeBarge, which was very interesting because he was from the Motown family. So I was able to express myself in a little different way, even dealing with him. So it was interesting. Every project that I took on, it was almost like me being able to stretch my arms out and say, "Oh, okay, now I know what I can do."
And so, can you talk to us also? You eventually played a little bit with Stevie Ray Vaughan and Stevie Wonder. Can you talk to us about that, or how that even happened?
Yeah, that was when I came on with Motown. I was a staff writer, and as a staff writer for Motown, I decided to take a crack at being an artist. Wasn't always my goal to do that, but they were kind of pushing me in that direction. Let's see how it works out, and so that's what happened. I became a Motown artist more so than a staff writer, and with that, I was pushed into situations where I had to sell myself or create a brand for myself. Yeah, I had to create a brand, and then what I did was I was first introduced to Smokey Robinson, which was an awesome experience. He took me to all the studios. He showed me how Motown operated, how Motown worked, and then I I got the opportunity to meet Stevie Wonder, and because I was now part of the Motown family, part of branding me was to get me up to speed with what some of the other old timers were doing, and that's when the character show, I believe it was the character, I can't remember, but it was on MTV. It was an MTV special, and they asked me, did I want to do this with Stevie Wonder? And I was a little nervous at first, but then I was like, you know what, this will be legendary. I'm playing with a legend, and I come from a legend. Prince to Stevie Wonder. This would be pretty awesome. And so, I took the gig, and I didn't really know Stevie Ray Vaughan was going to be there, and I knew Salt and Pepper was going to be there, and Jody Watley. And it was very funny because when I walked into the studio, I walked past this first room, and I swear there was about maybe 12 Marshall stacks piled up on top of one another. And I couldn't see Stevie Ray Vaughan, but I could hear him. I mean, it was so loud, and they had all the microphones in there. And then the cord went out the door around the corner to another room, and there was Stevie Ray Vaughan with his big hat with a feather in it, and he was just jamming by himself, tuning up his. They were adjusting his sound, and so I was thrilled at that point. And then we did the show, and it was an absolute success. And I just had a blast playing with the two of them together.
Yeah, that is awesome. And, obviously you've been in quite a few other projects and a lot of stuff that we don't have time to mention, but you mentioned the books coming out, so hopefully we can find out more about a lot of this stuff that you've been involved in with the book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been working on this book for 10 years, and it's just, it's been difficult for me because finding the right direction. That's been the task with the book. I wanted it to come out in 2014, but I had to push it back because of a few changes that I made. But now it's more of a story about my life rather than a book about my experiences as a musician with Prince. Now it's more of a well-rounded book. When I was a boy, all the way to the first show I did at the Rolling Stones concert. So it's pretty. It's a pretty intense book. People will be able to see my pain as well as my happy times. So, I can't wait till I finish it. It's going to be a nice book.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. You mentioned your first show was one of those Rolling Stone gigs when you guys were kind of met with some unfavorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been quite the experience to start off that way.
Yeah, and the thing about the Rolling Stones, I don't talk to journalists too much because a lot of times they'll take and twist your words, and they'll say things that you didn't say or you didn't mean to say. They'll take them out of context. So I was always reluctant to give interviews throughout my career. And one thing about the Rolling Stones concert is just an example of that, because it wasn't as bad as what a lot of the press made it. If you go to any Rolling Stones concert, I don't know if you've ever been to one, but you have a hostile audience. At this time, there was 94,000 people packed into a stadium, festival seating. There were, everybody was standing. It was hot. They had fire hoses spraying the people down like cattle, and with that kind of an atmosphere, you're going to get a very irritable crowd, and they wanted to see the Rolling Stones. And so here we came out, and we're somebody new. We're a new group, they didn't know who we were. And, there was a handful of fans in the audience that knew who we were, and they kind of worked their way up to the front. But for the most part, that was a Rolling Stones crowd. So when we got up there, it wasn't that they were booing us or did not like Prince. It was a typical reaction from a Rolling Stones crowd. I mean, one person starts throwing food on one side of the stage. Next thing you know, we're in the middle of a food fight. And it was pretty amazing because it looked like clouds of debris flying from one end of the stadium to the other.
Wow.
And we just kind of got caught in the crossfire, and it was just a typical reaction of Rolling Stones audiences. I've seen it many times before. And what happened was the announcer went out there and he was kind of barked at the people, said, you guys are being disrespectful and blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, they booed. They're like, boo-hoo, they weren't booing us. They were booing what he was saying. The papers took that a whole different way. So, but Rolling Stones, man, what an awesome gig. When I went out there and I saw those people, I was like, wow, so this is the big time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and with that being said, we do appreciate you taking some time out to talk with us, and, nothing but respect on our end for you, and it's been great having you on. Is there anything musically maybe you have coming up or any projects you want to mention before we go?
Yeah, just the Mazarati project. I'll actually be in town in a couple of weeks there, up in Minneapolis. I'm in the process of doing a reunion tour with the group, and I decided that I was going to play bass for them, because I was going to put my own thing together and take it on the road. But what a good idea, they brought up, hey, Mark, why don't you come and join forces with us? I thought that was a pretty good idea, and so what's happening is I'm going to be playing bass in Mazarati, and we're going to take the group, and we're just going to do some Brown Mark and some Mazarati, and take it on the road. So that's what we're currently working on right now, as well as we're going to go into the studio and remaster the original Mazarati album, if not redo it. I haven't decided yet the approach. And then we're going to also release a new CD with new music. So it's going to be an interesting time in 2015.
Wonderful. Well, again, Mark, thanks a lot for being on with us today.
Hey, no problem.
All right, we're looking forward to all the stuff you mentioned, and hopefully seeing you here in Minnesota in the next few weeks.
Okay, you guys take care.
All right, you too. Thanks, man.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.